We're rolling.
Hello, my name is Monica Ferguson. I'm here interviewing one of my coworkers today here at Procter & Gamble. Can you start by introducing yourself?
My name is David McDaniel. I'm the business leader for Pepto-Bismol packing line. I am responsible for the day-to-day operations and staffing and just the logistics part of running this particular line.
How long have you worked at this particular Procter & Gamble site?
Well, I've worked at both sites. At this one, I've worked about 15 years. Total, I've worked for about a total of 25 years with Procter & Gamble.
What were the other sites that you worked at?
I worked for the site we have at Brown Summit. I worked there for 10 years. I was a Denafirst manufacturing, making pot operator is what we call them.
Okay, well, did you work with different products there, like making different products?
The main thing I worked with there is we made all the different brands of Crest toothpaste, more or less. We made all the Crest toothpaste for North and South America.
Okay. How did the machinery work with, like, was it like completely different from what I've seen like on line 5?
Yes, the making equipment is all TDC, PLC, Logix. It's a liquid base, powder base making vessel. We meter in chemicals, water, surfactant, depending on what type of batch we were making. Then we would use our powder handling system, which we call it DMHS. We would make for simple work. It's like a vat. It's a tub, probably about 1,500 kgs, just full of different powders, saccharin, the type of preservatives, fluoride, and then it would be shot or put in a pot through air through the cylinders and mixed in there with either the RO or hot water, sorbitol, glycerin, whichever one of the bulk liquids we were using for that particular batch.
What are some of your daily tasks here that are like required for your job?
Daily task is calculating PR, process reliability, unplanned downtime, planned downtime, focusing on stop reduction. We calculate MTBF, mean time between failure. That means mean time between stops. Setting up the line for AM, which is autonomous maintenance. Staffing is key right now. SOP, which is our standard operating procedures, making sure they are accurate and changing SOPs if we need to. Updating our SAP information, batch records to make sure that the line has the proper documentation, proper formulas to run their product.
For you specifically, when you're working here, do you have any specific goals, like to get higher up, or do you just like your position that you're working at right now?
Actually, I like the position I'm at right now. As far as higher up, I've always been interested in a process leader, which right now is a business leader and a process leader. Business leader actually owns the line, owns the people. The process leader owns the equipment. I've always been more of an equipment owner. I like dealing with equipment. And so if I was to change careers or change positions, I'd like to go back to being either a process leader, or I would really like to take on safety. I'm a big proponent for safety. I would like to be in a safety role.
I know, like, just been working here, it's different with like the shifts and stuff. How do you keep your metabolism going? So like when you're switching from, you know, first, second, third shift, how do you just keep going?
That's for me. I've just been able to cope. It's each individual person copes with it their own way, and it's for the most, and it is tough. You know, obviously, the older you get, the tougher it is. The rotating shifts is trying, but just some philosophy on what P&G's philosophy is on rotating shifts is that right now we want everybody to have exposure to first shift to make sure they're having exposure to if they need the plant nurse, if they need help doing their equipment ownership. We are fully staffed across the board on first shift and obviously on second and third shift. we are not as we don't have the resources here to help people. So we would like everybody to come to first shift, so to work with all the resources, the management, to make sure that they're being successful, because my job and my boss's job is to make sure everybody on the floor is successful. You know, without them, you know, we wouldn't even be here.
Yeah. See, with my experience of like the whole like shift thing, I kind of had sort of like a type of epiphany, because my dad, he works for Dow Chemical, and he's done different companies through that. Like they used to have the multi-base plants in Ohio and stuff like that. So we've moved throughout that, but with the shifts, I kind of had like an epiphany the other day where he always talked about like kind of maybe some difficulties between shifts, not just like trying to get like the product done, but maybe sometimes they'll leave something and then there's just people, you know, they have that conflict. And for me, like he's told stuff about to me, like stuff that he's done through work, and to me it's just, you know, I never really understand it because I was too young to understand. Mm-hmm. But now I get that. And my grandfather, he works in a plant in Ohio, you know, in the manufacturing field. I'm not exactly sure what he does, but he's the type of person that he's worked 40 years with that type of thing, and he's sure about himself with everything that he does with the machinery and stuff like that. But there's more conflict when it comes to people. So he has kind of he has some anger issues and some patient issues when it comes to other people, but he works well with the machines. So he's good at his work. But do you ever have any conflict, particularly between different shifts and people, and how do you work through that?
Conflict resolution is very big with P&G. Obviously, there's always conflict. We wouldn't be a society, I mean, without having conflict. And for the most part, conflict is good. Confrontation is good. You want to make sure that you are confronting people to make sure they are doing the right things, making sure they are following the right procedures. Sometimes people take offense to the way they are approached with dealing with confrontation, and so we actually have classes that teach us how to be more mindful of the way we treat people and the way we speak to people, to help people understand, you know, it's a job. You know, if I'm confronting you for safety or quality, it's not because I'm mad at you, because I'm concerned about your safety, and obviously I'm concerned about the consumer's health. You know, make sure that we get them the right product. As far as the shift to shift peer confrontation, I honestly, I don't think we see enough of it. I think we see a lot of people who just live with situations, and that just, it's like holding in your emotions. It's not very good. For it to be a fully autonomous group, we need to be able to communicate effectively, and sometimes that means confronting. Hopefully you do it in a positive manner, because there's always ways you can tell somebody they're doing something wrong. But if you position it to where you're being more positive and give them another look, saying, why can't you do it like this, or as opposed to, you're not doing this, and hopefully they will be able to internalize the confrontation, or I would say confrontation, and be able to turn it around, make it work for them. But the whole point of confrontation is making sure that, sorry about that. The whole point of confrontation is making sure every team is working together and being successful. But as far as, I'm also a big proponent for profrontation, which is what we say, being positive when somebody does something right. Say, good job, pat on the back. You know, something, you know, it doesn't always, we are always quick to criticize. We're very slow to recognize, and I think that's one thing we're doing a better job of recognize people when they do successful, because, you know, you get more bees with honey than vinegar.
Do you expect any expansion with P&G, just by products, like different brands and stuff like that, or different sites?
P&G is always sourcing. I mean, there's always opportunities for us to grow the business. Uh, that right there is actually above my pay grade. Uh, but I do know that the plant manager is looking and working with P&G leadership to see if we can bring more product in-house.
Um, is there any specifically that you think needs to be changed for like the standards that we have in general here? Like I know the standards are here for like our health and our safety, but just a change that would help production.
Honestly, no. If you've ever worked for P&G, and I have for 25 years, P&G is extremely standard based, and they do a very, very good job of making sure they have the right standards. It's almost, it's hard to believe the amount of detail and the amount of people that focus on each individual standards. Obviously, we have misses every now and then, but we have people all the way up into Cincinnati, across the world, focusing on standards to making sure they are the right standards for the right job, making sure we have the right people in the right place, and to make sure that our consumer are getting the right product at the right time.
Do you know what the predicted sales growth is for this year is?
Honestly, I can't answer that. I'm not exactly sure.
Say that I applied as a P&G employee, and then I had to do. Can you tell me some of the basic training steps that I would have to take during I know there's an 18-month period time with that, but what would I have to do with machinery and just different things like that?
For P&G, once you are called in, you have to take a test. They give you more or less an aptitude test. To test your ability to, understand how basic equipment works, basic math, and making sure that you understand what you're getting into. Then you go through a 2-interview process. One is like a pre-interview. You interview with 2 individuals. They go over the base business and ask you a set questions, and they write down your response, and that you're graded on the response. If you pass that first interview, you get a second interview with what we call an operations department leader. If you pass that interview, then you have to go take the drug test, and the background checks are done. And if all that works out, then they give you a hire date. So they bring you in and they put you in a 2-week class of training. You're learning the base SOPs. You're learning basic SAP, how to fill out your time sheets, safety. You go over JSAs, safe practices, and then you go to the floor. For the first couple of weeks, for me, I like for the people who are on the line just to sit and monitor. I don't really want to get them working on pieces of equipment. We always want to err on the side of safety. We don't want somebody working on a piece of equipment that is not fully familiar with it. So we want to make sure that they read and sign a record of training for all the JSAs on that piece of equipment that they're working on. Also, we have what we call CILs, which are centerline and centerline standards. We want to make sure that they understand those before they actually start working on a piece of equipment. And then we put them with a sponsor. And that sponsor will teach them, depending on where we put them in their career path. Right now, all new hires will come in and do what we call a basic packing, which is a base overview of the entire organization, the entire line, learning each piece of equipment, at least the base operations. You will have a sponsor that will teach you and show you all the, the basic troubleshooting, how to change it over, how to do, basic maintenance. Then you will, once you finish that skill block, then you go to another skill block to where you'll be more specific on the labeler, more specific on the filler or the capper. And then going from there, you start getting into our quality checks. You'll be what we call a PLQT, qualified technician, or admin technician, and those are our quality leaders on the line.
This is the last question. What advice would you give to someone just newly going into a manufacturing field?
Are you talking about P&G in specific, or just a manufacturing field?
Just like in general.
Manufacturing is, if it's something you really want to do, can be fun because there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of learning opportunities you can have. Depending on what company you're with, P&G for one, there's a lot of growth opportunities. When you come to P&G, one of the things we tell people is we're not looking for somebody to work here 8 hours a day. We're looking for somebody who wants to have a career in this company, because we invest in people to make sure that they will be with us a long time. If you go around and you ask a lot of people, I mean, I've been here 25 years, but I'd say the average years of service here is anywhere between 10 to 15 years. I mean, we see very little turnover due to people not wanting to work. I mean, we have turnover for other issues, but P&G does a very good job, and that's why, with all the interviews and the testing, they do a very good job of hiring people that want to learn. They want to be part of something, and that's what I'm saying about manufacturing. Textiles, can be volatile, because obviously you don't know when it could be leaving. But as far as P&G, if you're talking about P&G specific, I mean, it's been here, and both plants are growing. The one across town at Brown Summit has grown tremendously. I mean, it's added on a whole new business. I mean, it's doubled in size. So, I mean, manufacturing or packaging, however you want to look at it, it's a fun career path if you're wanting to learn something new every day.
Thank you.
Thank you.